Try this test. You wake up outside an ancient city at dawn with 1 pouch of silver and 1 week to cross a continent. You do not ask, "Who is king?" You ask 3 quieter questions. Where is the road? Where is the water? And who guarantees the deal? In the ancient world, travel was never just movement. It was economics in motion. Roads decided which towns grew rich, ships decided which empires ate well. Caravans decided which ideas, gods, and diseases found new homes. If you want to understand ancient power, follow the routes. Start at a city gate just before sunrise. The guards are not only watching for enemies, they are watching for taxes. A cart of grain, a herd of goats, a merchant with sealed jars of oil. Each is a moving revenue stream. The gate is a border, but it is also a cash register. Now widen the scene. You are standing somewhere between Babylon and the sea, between Egypt and the Levant, between the Aegean Islands and the Italian peninsula. The ancient world is stitched together by 3 technologies: the ship, the pack animal, and the road. Each has a different cost, a different speed, and a different kind of risk. Here is the central tension. Ancient states needed movement to survive, but movement was expensive and fragile. To feed cities, supply armies, and tax trade, rulers had to make travel safer and more predictable, without modern engines, maps, or police forces. The result was a constant negotiation between geography and institutions. Begin with water travel, because it is the cheapest way to move weight. Picture a harbor at midday. Timber piers, ropes, shouting, amphorae stacked like chess pieces. A merchant ship sits low in the water, full of grain or wine or clay. By land, a wagon can carry a heavy load, but it needs animals, fodder, and a passable road. By sea, one ship can carry the equivalent of hundreds of pack animals. That advantage is why coastal cities rise fast. But here's the twist. The sea is cheap only when it is calm. It demands timing. Sailors wait for seasonal winds. Captains hug coastlines to avoid storms. Ports become the true nodes of the system, because a ship is useless without a safe place to load, repair, and resupply. Think of the Nile. For Egypt, the river is not scenery. It is infrastructure. It moves stone for temples, grain for cities, and officials for administration. It turns distance into routine. A boat can float downriver with a heavy cargo using the current. Upstream travel is harder, but the wind often helps. The river becomes an economic conveyor belt. Now shift to the Mediterranean. Here, the sea is a highway, but a dangerous one. Pirates are not a myth. They are a business model. If there is valuable cargo and weak enforcement, raiding is rational. So states respond the way states always respond. They try to monopolize violence. Naval patrols, fortified harbors, and alliances with coastal cities are not only military choices, they are trade policy. A ship also creates finance problems. Before a voyage, someone must pay for wood, sailcloth, wages, and cargo. That money is tied up for months. If the ship sinks, the investment vanishes. This is why ancient merchants lean on credit, partnerships, and risk-sharing arrangements. Even without modern insurance, they invent ways to spread danger across multiple investors. On the dock, you can see the social hierarchy of travel. The owner may never sail. The captain is skilled, respected, and replaceable. The sailors are labor. The porters are labor. And behind them all is paperwork. Seals, receipts, and agreements. Movement produces records because records produce trust. Now leave the water and follow the caravan. At the edge of the desert, the air changes. The road becomes a track. The track becomes a memory. Here, distance is measured in wells, not miles. Caravans are slow, but they reach places ships cannot. They carry light, high-value goods, incense, spices, dyes, textiles, metals, and, sometimes, people. A caravan is not a line of camels. It is a traveling institution. Someone must organize animals, drivers, guards, food, water skins, and repair tools. Someone must negotiate passage through territories where the state's authority fades. Someone must decide how to respond to raids, storms, and sickness. Now, the part most people miss: the biggest constraint on caravan trade is not speed, it is reliability. A city that receives caravans irregularly cannot plan its markets. A state that cannot predict arrivals cannot tax them effectively. So caravan routes tend to harden into corridors where water, security, and governance align. Look at an oasis town. It is a small miracle. Date palms, a well, a few walls, a market, and a stable yard. Yet it can become wealthy because it sells the one thing every traveler must buy: survival. Oasis economies teach a core ancient rule: control the choke points, and you control the flow. This is why so many ancient conflicts are fought over passes, river crossings, and desert edges. Not because rulers love maps, but because they love revenue. Caravans also create cultural exchange. A trader brings stories, a pilgrim brings rituals, a soldier brings a language. Over time, routes become pipelines for ideas. When you see similar weights, similar coin designs, or similar gods in distant places, you are seeing the long shadow of travel. But travel also carries fragility. A drought can dry a well. A war can close a pass. A new power can demand higher tolls. When the route changes, wealth moves. Some cities die quietly, not by conquest, but by detour. Now move on to the most visible travel technology of all: roads. Imagine standing on a straight stone road running to the horizon. Milestones, drainage ditches, and a hard surface that turns mud into movement. This is the Roman dream. But Rome did not invent roads, it industrialized them. The Persian royal road, the Chinese imperial routes, and older Mesopotamian tracks all point to the same truth. Roads are governance made physical. Roads are expensive. They require labor, stone, timber, and constant repair. So why build them? Because roads lower transaction costs. They make it cheaper to move soldiers, cheaper to move tax revenue, cheaper to move messages. A road turns a distant province into a reachable province. In an ancient tax office, that matters. Taxes are not only counted, they are transported. Grain must be moved to granaries. Silver must reach treasuries. Officials must travel to enforce rules. Without roads, a state becomes a patchwork of local powers. With roads, it becomes a system. Here is where everything quietly starts to break. Roads also empower rivals. The same highway that moves your army moves the invaders. The same corridor that brings you tolls becomes a target for bandits. So states pair roads with enforcement, garrisons, patrols, and legal penalties. Notice the administrative layer. Along major roads you find relay stations, inns, stables, and warehouses. These are not random conveniences, they are the skeleton of a logistical state. In Persia, couriers ride in stages. In Rome, official travel uses passes and requisitions. In China, granaries and postal routes support armies and governance. Movement becomes standardized. Yet ordinary travelers live in a different reality. Most people do not ride fast. They walk. They join small groups for safety. They sleep in roadside shelters or in the homes of relatives. Travel is a decision weighed against risk. Many will never go far from their birthplace. Still, even slow travel reshaped lives. A young mason might follow a building crew to a new town and send wages home. A widow might join a pilgrimage caravan for protection, trading labor for passage. Soldiers returning from service carried coin, scars, and new habits, eating different foods and speaking borrowed phrases. At roadside toll posts, officials inspected loads and pressed seals into wax, turning movement into revenue. At night, travelers crowded into a roadside inn or caravanserai, animals tethered, packs inventoried, strangers sharing a fire. News traveled with them. Floods upriver, bandits on a ridge, a new toll on the next bridge. In that cramped shelter, information became another form of currency. Some journeys were forced. Tax collectors requisitioned carts. Armies marched, stripping roadside grain. Captives moved in chains, quietly remaking borderlands and cities. So who travels? Merchants, soldiers, officials, pilgrims, entertainers, and enslaved people moved by force. Each group experiences the network differently. The merchant sees opportunity. The soldier sees orders. The pilgrim sees sacred duty. The enslaved person sees displacement. To understand ancient economics, compare costs. Sea travel is cheapest per unit of weight, but seasonal and perilous. Caravan travel is flexible and reaches interiors, but slow and constrained by water. Road travel is reliable where states maintain it, but costly and vulnerable where authority is weak. Empires succeed when they combine all three and manage the transfer points: ports, oases, and road hubs. Consider a simple example. Grain for a city. A ship delivers bulk grain to a port. Carts move it inland. Officials store it in granaries. Merchants distribute it to markets. Each transfer point is a place where someone takes a fee, a bribe, or a tax. The route is not only physical, it is a chain of claims. Now contrast that with incense. Incense travels by caravan, from desert and mountain zones to temples and wealthy homes. The value is not calories, it is ritual and status. That makes it perfect for long-distance trade. When a society becomes richer, it imports not only necessities, but symbols. Travel routes feed both stomachs and imaginations. A modern analogy helps here, without turning it into slogans. Think of logistics today. A container ship is still the cheapest mover of weight. A truck is flexible. A highway is reliable. The ancient world had the same logic, just slower, riskier, and more dependent on institutions like temples, palaces, and councils to enforce deals. And those institutions mattered. Temples often served as safe storage and contract witnesses. Palaces offered protection for favored merchants and demanded tribute in return. Councils in trading cities set standards for weights and measures. Scribes turned movement into records. Without those layers, trade shrinks to local barter. So what did ancient people actually experience on the road? They experienced waiting for winds, waiting for a convoy, waiting at a gate while taxes were assessed. They experienced bargaining over transport fees, fodder prices, and bribes. They experienced fear, storms, thieves, illness, and political borders that could change overnight. And they experienced wonder because travel revealed that the world was larger than any village. The most powerful. Empires understood this psychology. They built routes not only for commerce but for loyalty. A road that brings grain, and soldiers also brings news, coins, and the feeling that the center is present. When routes fail, the center becomes distant, and local power returns. So here is a framework you can carry to any ancient civilization. Call it hull, hoof, and highway. Hull. What water routes exist, and who controls the ports, ships, and seasonal windows? Hoof. What caravan corridors exist? Where are the wells and oases, and who controls the chokepoints and protection? Highway. What roads exist? Who pays to build and repair them? And how does the state enforce safety and standard travel? Answer those three, and you can predict a surprising amount. Which cities grow? Which elites get rich? Which armies can move? And which crises turn into collapse? Return to the opening test. You wake outside the city with silver and a week to cross the world. Now you know what to look for. A port with warehouses means food and power. An oasis with guards means tolls and survival. A road with relay stations means a state that can reach you.